okay. You have to behave tonight.
What's the fun in being behave?
Well, that's a deep topic, but you know, we've got some good things to go over here. So the first thing to check in with is, how's the weather been? Has it been crazy up your way?
It has been. We haven't really gotten like crazy hot, but the humidity has been crazy, and we've been getting a lot of rain. So, a lot of landslides, a lot of flash flooding, just a whole bunch of that going on up here. So, it's been really kind of a wet, wacky summer there. So, how's it been down there?
Well, we had these really bad dog days this past week, but we had some rain break it up, and we had one or two days just in the last day or two that was kind of bucking against the trend. So maybe the hot weather has peaked and is starting to go down.
Maybe. Because I know that we're going to be in the upper 70s, lower 80s the rest of the week. Chance of rain on Tuesday, but at least it's not crazy hot. But that humidity, it could be like 81, and that humidity is crazy. It makes it very oppressive and uncomfortable.
Right.
Very sticky. Like you feel wet.
Yeah.
So you
know
could be
who's
cool
got it
but
bad
wet.
in Texas. We've got relatives in Texas.
Uh-huh.
They're in the 100s for the heat index. 105, 106 is like the heat index for all of southeast Texas right now.
Do they have big humidity?
I don't know. I know
Because
down by
I wonder
the
if
coast.
that's more comfortable because of it being less humid but hot. I wonder if that's different feel.
I think a heat index of 106 is uncomfortable no matter what.
True. I remember when I was watching the news and they were talking about the fires and stuff up in Colorado and how it's been like 100 plus for most of the days there. And the one newsman described it as it felt like a hot air dryer was blowing on them because even though it was windy, the heat was so hot, it was hot wind. So the wind didn't even cool you off because you felt like you were in a blow dryer.
Right.
So,
Well, now that we have the pleasantries out of the way, I wanted to bring up the first topic.
okay. I actually forget what the first topic is. I read them as they were coming up. Oh, way to bring up that topic right now.
To a new area.
That went up. Because I have no idea.
Well, tell me what you think about dreaming. You know, when you're living your life and you're trying to decide, you know, where you're happy and where you're thriving and where you're not, what are the things that sort of come into your mind as being the biggest, you know, most important factors?
Enjoying what you do. Enjoying the work that you do and how you do it and what you do and all that jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Because
So enjoyment is huge, but you know, enjoyment if you don't have a lot of paychecks can
that
only
in itself
get
can
you
be
so far.
right. Yeah, a love of a job can only get you so far if it doesn't pay, which is the dilemma that I'm currently going through. So that kind of gives that whole, you know, where do you go from there? How do you find something that you enjoy but has the paycheck that follows? Talking to a gentleman last weekend with my guy, and because he had to get a new phone, And the gentleman who was working at the cricket store was actually pre-med. And as he was talking about, doing a clinical round and stuff, that he really liked it. But most of the time when he spoke of the numbers, because I had mentioned that I had gotten my master's degree in psychology and stuff. And he's like, oh, in the medical field, getting your master's here, you start off numbers at 5, 6, 50, 60,000 and, blah, blah, blah. And it was numbers game. And it's an important piece. And it makes me go, but I want those numbers. And
yeah, those numbers sound pretty good.
Yeah, I would love to start at those numbers. That would be really, really great.
Can we do some numbers here?
How can I work those numbers? And the part about it is that, if I go back into the medical field and go and get some of my certificates and things like that, I could probably start off at 45, 50 and work my way up. But I'd have to go back and get some training again. That's not something I want to do, being burnt out on school.
Right.
And also wanting to do the whole change the career and go into psychology and psychiatric care, and it makes the whole fun thing exciting and not exciting and stressful and very fun. So, criteria, like, logically speaking, there's, you set things. There's set things for us to do. There's standards for us to do. There's ways we can go about it and things like that. Too bad us humans are emotional. And emotional ties and emotional responses and everyday life stressors all combined can make a hard decision into to and fro. What to do, stick to it, change it, how to change it, where to change it, what are you willing to change, and how much are you willing to sacrifice for what dream that you're going for. So that's always the fun thing.
So in your mind, what's that role? What's the right role to play there in terms of when to sacrifice, when not to sacrifice?
For me or for anybody?
Well, I mean, just in general. I mean, I'm not asking you to say about your current situation, but what would you advise someone else?
Advise someone else? I would probably say that do the pros and cons. It's one of the things that we've been working on in groups. With a lot of our groups, we talk about change and the effects of change and how change can be scary. And there's two types of pros and cons. The pros and cons of doing the change and the pros and cons of status quo, just keeping what you got. And then reviewing those pros and cons and seeing, is it better to make the change or is it better to just at that time stay at the status quo? And those kind of things kind of help, break it down and visualize it. And sometimes if you can visualize it, it actually can help you make that decision where you know that you are feeling one way or another, but you can't see it through the chaos of the change itself. And so that sometimes can help key up that factor.
Right.
So generally, that's
there's a general thing, but how would you say to somebody who's thinking about a job? How does job satisfaction weigh into that?
Well, that's a huge part because sometimes it depends upon the urgency of the need, and or is it something that when you change, the change is going to be drastically different. And it might take you down a different road than what you are, but financially it's not going to make a change in that sense. Because sometimes if you make a lateral move and you just change from careers, but your income stays generally the same, then that makes that change a little bit easier, even though it's a scary adventure and you're stepping out of your comfort zones and things like that. but sometimes, but since, life doesn't work that way all the time, you have to kind of view, is is this move going to take me down the ladder, or is it going to take me back up higher on the ladder? And which one is going to affect you in your lifestyle, and or what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to not sacrifice? And that's the huge pieces that have to be looked at.
Right. So that's probably the single most important factor. What about other relationships that you're involved in and such? How do you weight and evaluate those?
That actually is just as important, because if you're sharing a life, you can't just make a lateral move without checking with that person, because they're part of that life as well. And, just coming home one day from work and saying, hey, I quit my job, I'm going to do this, and you're the only income, or you are a main portion of the income, or even 50-50, that's really not keeping in consideration the partner and what they have envisioned and what they plan on doing. And if you guys were working together as a goal, then you have to keep in consideration that when you make those changes, you have to work together again.
Right. Gotcha.
So
there's
family
a lot of
is a
thinking that has
matter.
to happen, evaluation.
Yeah. It can't just be a sudden move and say, oh, well, screw it, I'm just going to do it. You have to kind of see the whole picture. And you have to be able to...
Is it easy to talk about or no?
What do you mean talk about?
I mean, to bring it up and to talk about and to say the person you're in a relationship with, hey, this is what I'm thinking about.
It depends upon how much of
what do you think?
Open communication that you have with that partner and in that family. And if that's an important piece in a relationship, you have to kind of have that communication. And no, it's not going to be easy, because it's a fear. Your fear of rejection, your fear of not being able to do what you want to do, or being able to do what you want to do, but worrying about disappointing that other person. And so, there's a lot of different parts. So broaching the subject itself can be a whole anxiety stressor in itself.
So it comes down to the quality of the relationship?
And yes, an important part of that would be the quality of the relationship, and also the important part of what the comfort zone and the anxiety level of that person who's making the change. Past experiences, if they've broached subjects that may not even be in the same or similar relationships, or even any kind of subject that fear factor can be part of it as well, because of that rejection or the backlash that may come from it. So, that could hesitate a lot of people in making changes because they don't have that. So, yeah, I think relationship and open communication and, kind of having the bravery to do it.
Well, not only then is it the person you're in a relationship with that this is tough, but what about with children? And what would you say for those situations?
It depends the age of the children too. If you got some really, really young things, diapers type situation, they're not going to know anything. School age kids, that's a conversation. You need to talk to them. You got to let them know that this is going to happen, especially if it's a relocation, because you're now only are you not uprooting yourself and making this change, but you're also asking people that don't know anything else but this to do this huge change with you. So they need to know. They need to be aware of it. They need to have a vote. It doesn't mean that their vote is going to dissuade yay or nay, but it will be a consideration as part of the factors in that decision making. So Teenage,
Well, what do you
same
think?
thing.
What are the crucial ages, you think?
The crucial ages for talking, adolescence
Yeah.
and teenage, especially whenever they've hit school age and they're developing their own, they're coming into their own. They're getting to make a foot for themselves. They're starting to get their identity. And you become say, oh, we're going to live in a mobile home and move from town to town every day. Every month we'll be in a different place. That could be rough on the kid sometimes, or the kid could embrace it. But it still has to be kind of a decision and a discussion. It can't be just, oh, you've had a stable life in this house for, the first 10 years of your life. But hey, guess what? You're going to live in a mobile home and every month we're going to be in a different place. Some kids might go, yay, and some kids go, my friends. It has to be a conversation. If they're grown and they've moved out, that could be a whole different conversation as well, because it's still, but it's not and it's not as essential because, they're living their lives. They can move away at any time. You know what I mean? And they're doing their lives at this point. But, getting their viewpoint and thoughts.
What is it for teens that, what is it about the social aspects of that age that make it so hard for them to move?
Their identity. Because they're coming into who they are. They're experimenting on where they want to be, who they want to be, what makes them them. And the stability of having that comfort zone of what they know will sometimes really make a difference. And sometimes it doesn't. It depends upon, again, I think the relationship of the parents with their kids and the open communication. But you could be the most open parent and have the best communication in the world, and the teenager is not going to tell you anything. And so those crucial moments in their identity can get lost with the fact that they never get to make one. And so, or they just started to make one and all of a sudden have to make a new one. Now, there are cases, too, that sometimes parents end up having to change a whole lifestyle and location for the kid because of their identity and where they were, just so that they can come into their own. So there's sacrifices on both ends sometimes as well.
Right. Well, what do you do if you're in a situation where you have no options but to move, but that would still be really crushing for the identity of the teenager? I mean, is there some way the conversation can go other than just, hey, this is going to happen and you're going to have to, suck it up?
Suck it up, buttercup? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but it still has to be a conversation. And, you have to tell them, these are the things that are going on in the home. This is what, to make sure that, a roof is over your head and school is available to you, things are here, food is in your mouth. We might have to make these changes. And, you have to make the conversation also at the level of whatever the age of the child is. Higher teenage years, you can be pretty real with them, saying that this isn't, sometimes this isn't a choice that we have, but it's the only thing that we can do. And we have to make the sacrifice, and it's going to be hard, but we're going to be here for each other to help each other through this and having that open relationship. And of course, the younger they get, you have to simplify it of that, a new adventure, a new trial, and let's give it a try and see what happens. And, it's not going to be the same, and you have to explain that they're going to feel very lost and very confused. But after they get into it, once a change has become a habit, it's not a change anymore. And the more you do that change, the more it becomes who you are. And that's part of growing in itself. And explaining that and helping them with that will make that change a little bit easier. Not perfect, because there never will be a perfect change, but it will help reduce some of the anxiety of their loss of feel of losing their identity.
Right.
So but again, it has to be age appropriate discussion. But it can't be just, they come home from school one day and the room and like, oh hey, we're moving out west. It can't be one of those deals. And they don't feel that they had a voice in what was going on.
Well, what do you think is involved in rebuilding an identity? If not that you would want to do that, but if you had to go through a situation that was hard on a teenager, for example, what would you try to do to make the best out of the situation?
What do you mean? I guess I need more clarification of what you mean.
You said that the move can crush their identity that they're trying to form. So what could you do to ameliorate that, or what could you do to go around that, or to otherwise try to deal with that or cope with that in a positive way?
Well, coping is exactly what's going to be, because there is no way around it. There's no way to avoid it, and there's no way to stop it. It's going to happen. And they might find that their identity was able to pick up where it left off. But you have to make sure that they know that this is going to be different. There's not going to be the same people, and they're not going to know who you are. And there's this opportunity to make your identity of what you thought it should be instead of what it turned out to be, because they've known you all your life. And you can give them those options. Or if you like the way things are, then you can keep going the way you are, and you might find your own groove. And, and again, open communication and, just really having a good conversation about that. Because they're going to be angry, and there's no ifs and ands about it. You are going to have that rare kid who's like, gung-ho, let's go, and I can't wait to reform who I am. But some are going to really reject it. And even when they say they're gung-ho, then they find out it's not the routine that they're used to. They're going to also reject it for a period of time. And then that's whenever a discussion has to be done at that time about it. And kind of always do a check-in. Don't just assume that everything's going good. Check in and find out for sure. And don't be pushy about it. Be, hey, what's going on? How are things going? And having that kind of thing. And don't just go, well, what's it like? What are you thinking? Don't be pushy about it, but make sure that check-in is being done.
Do you think it generally affects young women more than young men, or about equally, or different ways, or what would you say?
Well, I'm sure that there's studies about both men and women and males and females and adolescent years, because of their development stages or difference and things like that, that there is that chance of that, that females would have more rejection than males, or have a harder time fitting in than males, and things like that. But it all really actually depends upon the individual. And I'm not much for that status quo, guys are more likely to do this and girls are more likely to do that. I'm all for the individual and what they're going through. Because everybody goes through different events in their life. That nurturing sensation right there. That also plays a huge role versus the nature situation. Yes, nature will tell that certain parts of development can cause this more than this in male or female, but individual and what they've gone through will also dictate that as well. So it has to be very individualized, because you could have two daughters and similar ages, and they go through totally two different ways of handling it, or vice versa with boys. Daughters with different age limits and sons with different age limits, or a son and daughter, and both of them don't even follow the status quo at all, or what, statistics show, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It does. Are there any things that you would really be on the lookout for that would be concerning, like withdrawal or isolation or other reaction?
There are going to be a sense of that. There's going to be some isolation at first. But yes, if it's continuous, if they find that they're not reaching out at all, they're not making efforts to make the change or to accept the change and embrace difference. And then yes, that's those little key factors of behavioral issues, the grades suddenly dropping, them doing things that are against the norm, that they normally do. It could be very benign, but it's not something that should be overlooked or just like, oh, it's just the stage of life they're going through. No, it's be looked at. It still needs to be discussed. What's going on? You know, what puts you in this place? You know, what's been changing? And they're going to reject it. They're going to not want to talk, but you have to kind of broach that subject, and you have to kind of broach it in a way that can help find a way to get into their conversation and get them to talk to you about it. Because if not, then, you know, dangerous things can happen, and you don't want to go that route.
Right. So it's going to come down to how the individual responds in that situation, and how proactive should a parent be there? I mean, you know, what's too much and what's not enough?
Well, for one thing, if you have a good relationship already, becoming a hover parent will not suddenly make them perfect kids. If you weren't a hover parent before, don't be a hover parent now. But make sure that you still have you have an open conversation and you have talks with them, and you know you're following what they're going through and you're following what's going on. You're paying attention to their grades. You're paying attention to how much they're paying attention to school. You know, you're having communication with their teachers in the school and things like that. Are they having behavior issues while they're there? You know, are they isolating while they're there? And that's kind of what those parent-teacher meetings are all about. They're not meant for you to just hear them, oh, well, Susie Q was able to, you know, write this great, wonderful letter or this great, wonderful paper, and it's so awesome, and look what they were able to accomplish. That's great. Okay, but you can broach the hard questions. Okay, well, how are they interacting with others? Do you finding any behavioral issues? Are they coming late to class? Are they wanting to leave class often? You know, that kind of thing. And it has to be talked about. It can't just be, you know, ignored. And then if you don't suddenly start ignoring them because you're trying to deal with your stress of the change. You know, and sometimes the kids like to hear that they're not perfect, the parent's not perfect, and they're still working on it. You know what I mean? So, you know, that has to be looked at.
Is there any time when you would, like say, you know, you're a parent and you're interacting, but you feel like even though you're trying to interact in a healthy way, you feel like things are spiraling and starting to get out of control? You know, at what point would you want to reach out?
When you start to feel that things are spiraling, that's when you reach out. You don't just wait until something occurs. If you feel things are falling apart, you feel that your child is drifting away from you and things are getting worse and you don't know what's going on, this is when you have to reach out. This is where you find professional help. You check with the counselors at school. You broach the chance of maybe a family counseling situation. Find out what's going on. You know, because sometimes they'll be brutally honest when they're in front of a counselor and they let you have it. Or they can clam up even harder. But then that will be, a professional will be able to see that and really kind of look at it and tell them and advise them, hey, you're doing great, this is normal, keep going. Or, hey, this is this is something we got to broach, and this is something we have to take care of and start to look at. So all pieces are being viewed. So don't wait until a kid has something go wrong with them before you decide to broach it. If you start noticing it, that's when you have to get out there and see the counselor. Go out there and talk to a professional. Find out what's going on and find out what steps you need to take so that you can ensure that the things are going okay. Because it may have nothing to do with your parenting skills. It could be just them and their identity and their personal life and how they're handling it. And, putting a blind eye to it doesn't make it go away.
Right. So tactically, what does that look like? I mean, if you're a parent and you've never reached out before to any sort of support structures like a school counselor or a teacher or something, what's who should you talk with first, and how should you kind of bring things up? What's the right way to engage there?
Location is a huge thing. In the city, there's definitely a lot more availability for assistance. Just for the fact that a lot of schools have that stuff already built in and just already there. And there's nothing to really do or look at because it's already there. Most of the time the school will pick it up before you even think about it. But sometimes in the suburbs, in the country and things like that, or a single parent or something like that, it can be harder to feel that harder for a parent because they're feeling that maybe they failed as a parent, so they're afraid to go ask. And that when you, as a parent, go and ask professional help, which is, by the way, best approach is usually the school counselor, because then they would be able to assist you with professionals in the area, because they would be very familiar to all the supports and professionals that are around. But as a parent, that isn't a failure. It's actually being a very strong parent, because you're swallowing your pride, and when you realize that things are farther than what you can handle, and you're putting your kid in front of your pride, which is a hard thing for a parent to do. It's a hard, and that's why most kids don't get diagnosed with some of their mental health issues until they end up doing something extreme, and then they're in the hospital. Because there could be warning signs long before it happened, but the parent is more or less going, no, that's just they're being a teenager, they're just acting up, or no, there's nothing wrong, and because they don't want to, as a parent, to see that there's something wrong. And so then they end up in the hospital and in and out of hospitals for the rest of their life. And, sometimes some of that stuff can be avoided. Sometimes it can't. Sometimes their mental illness can take over and they don't have much choice and need to go in the hospital. But still, that's not an everyday situation for every kid. But it has to, the parent has to swallow their pride so that it doesn't go that way, or so that the kid can have a sense of stability or strength.
Right.
So.
So that's some pretty high level stuff. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go back up to you as the parent, and not necessarily like with the child with the identity situation, like the teenage child. So back up to the, where would you dream? Now this is actually a personal question for you. Where are the top 3 places geographically that you dream about? That you think to yourself, oh wow, if I'm going to live somewhere, I want to make sure that I live here for at least some part of my life. What are your
Australia.
top? What? Wait, why Australia?
Because I've always wanted to go there.
Well, tell me about it. What's the attraction?
I have no idea. I really don't know what it is. It's just a fascinating country. it's just so upside down, but still able to have the modern conveniences, but so upside down and so, I don't know. It's just been a very fascinating place for me. I actually have no logical reason, just because is my actual reason.
Would there be an accent change? Would you start to talk with the Australian accent?
Oh, that would be really cool. But I would definitely be like, just talk to me some more. Go ahead, keep talking. I'll just sit here and listen for a while.
You would just sit and listen for the most part,
Sit
huh?
and listen. But yeah, on the beach. But I don't know how much work I would get done. I'd have to definitely use a lot of coping skills to go to work and not sit on the beach. And in fact, my ultimate dream, to be able to just travel all the time.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah?
Yeah. Not have a really set location. That to
Okay,
me
so
would be the ultimate dream. That would be number one.
the world would be your home.
Correct. I mean, literally just float from one place to another at different points and just try and see everything. I mean, literally. That itself would be so balls. That would be the coolest.
Wow. So,
What are your
so if
three?
if Australia would just be a first one, what might be a number 2 or a number 3?
I would definitely want to hit like Europe. Then I wouldn't mind hitting like the Americas, all parts of it. Alaska is not a dream area for me that I would be like going, ooh. That would be like a check-in. That'd be a whole 5-minute check-in. Okay, looks nice. Okay, goodbye. But no, but yeah, I would definitely, I would want to see it all. Probably Australia and then Europe's, but like all over there.
Well, Europe is pretty
maybe
big. I mean, there's a lot of languages and a lot of people groups. Would you
right.
England or France or Italy or?
Yeah.
But which one first?
Whichever one I landed at.
You can pick different ones there.
Oh, right, but why? But why?
Okay, so you would just okay. So Turkey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Neat.
So Europe is number 2.
Mhm. And probably Africa, South America.
Okay, but help me out in Africa because Africa is big.
Yeah. It's wherever the plan leads.
I'm sensing a continual non-committalness here.
Correct. You would be correct in this.
So
Very correct.
So why would you pick one place or another? Like, would it be about, where your dollar went further or, where you could live
Pretty
the
much.
best? Or?
Pretty much. I mean, it would more or less be where I can land. I walked in and give me a plane ticket to this and I got this much. Where can I go? And land there.
Right.
And then when I got enough again, land there. Yeah. So that kind of be.
So it wouldn't be about seeing like certain landmarks or seeing certain.
No, it would just be the neatness of just experiencing all those different cultures and just experiencing them. I mean, totally. And the awkwardness of it all at first, and then the uniqueness and how cool their culture is so different than mine. I mean, I don't think I would want to hit me in some major desert area because that doesn't do it for me. Unless the desert area had a really good city with a lot of modern conveniences. But desert doesn't really do it. But other than that, yeah. I mean, totally. I would just want to see and experience everything.
Right. Now, what about?
What was your top three?
Well, wait a minute. You didn't even name top three. You said the world.
Yeah, I did. I said Australia, and then I went to the. What did I say? I said three.
Yeah, you said Australia, but you picked Europe, which is like 70,000 different.
Yeah.
Options.
I mean, I picked quite a few.
And then you picked the Americas.
Yeah.
If you pick everything, you didn't pick anything. You have to.
You totally picked. I did totally pick everything.
Yes, you did. But that's part of it too, though. I mean, that's a big part of it, though. Would you want to go to cultures that would be like more like would you want to go to the Arab world where you would have to wear a burqa?
Yeah. I'd want to experience it all. I definitely would probably want to throw the American card whenever it got too uncomfortable, but I would respect their culture, just so that I could experience it. Not going there to judge it. I'm going there to experience it and see it and just get a feel of it and go from there. Not to, I gotta change this place that I'm here. No, if I left my mark with just who I am and made friends, then that just works for me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's my thing.
I got you.
That would be the
That makes sense.
thing ever. Not have any roots.
Just be a free spirit, a Rolling Stone.
Oh yeah, totally.
You remember that song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone? That's what that was about. Wherever he laid his hat was his home.
Lucky Papa.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you asked me my three, and I don't know that I have three good ones like that. I guess I would. I guess I've always been fascinated with China.
That would be fun to visit. I forgot that one.
China would be fun. Yeah. And the land of, if it's not tied down, it can go into the food. So.
What?
You know, the Chinese eat everything. Everything that's not bolted down.
But, actually, that's the thing is that a lot of places that we're not familiar with is the same way, Some of their best foods or whatever was not tied down, whatever was in the backyard at the time.
Well, that's
the
true.
Standard crew. So,
That's true. That's true. But there's a lot of the other thing too is China is also, especially the southern part of China, near the city of Hong Kong and Shenzhen region, is it's the electronics device capital of the world.
That's kind of cool. The one thing that what's funny is that you're talking about like the electronic part of China because that's kind of what they're known for. And when I'm thinking China, I'm thinking the small towns that have the huts and farmland and rice surrounding you, and the villages, and you're lucky if you got electricity. I would hope for a running toilet. You know what I'm saying? That would be the more fun. That would be more fun than, walking around the town of electronics. But that's kind of cool. Keep going. I like that. China and the electronic place.
Well, China
for you.
is a complicated place, so there'd be room for both of us to do that, actually.
Totally, because, not that I would want to dismiss the electronics, because I would want the convenience of modern age after a period of no toilet.
I would love to walk around all the shops with the electronics and take them all in, but you'd probably just want the electronics.
Yeah, pretty much. Not to look at them, I would want to go, okay, can we buy that now? Why are we looking at it?
Can we just skip to the part where we get it?
Right.
So yes, that would definitely be exciting. Exciting for me. I think another place that would be wonderful would be the Philippines.
Ooh.
So we have
What's the
relatives there.
We do? Oh, yes, we do.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, 'cause he's invited me a couple times. I'm like, are you going to pay for it? And then he quit inviting me.
Yeah, well, you know, that's not how invitations work.
And I'm like, well, it got him to quit inviting me, so.
Yeah.
He's like, okay,
But
pay for the trip. I'll be there.
yeah, the Philippines is beautiful, and it's also a very attractive place for Americans to live.
Mhm. And I would do it just for the tourist. Do the whole touristy thing.
Right. Yep. Definitely. And then let's see,
That
what
would
would
be
it be
cool.
for number 3? For number 3, I'd probably want to spend some time in Eastern Europe, like Poland and the Czech Republic and Hungary and Romania, and that'd be pretty
That'd be
exciting.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you do your company part picnic at that one time? Greece. I wouldn't mind going to Greece.
Oh, you would love it, sweetie. You would
I
love
wouldn't
that.
mind.
That was
And Venice,
Greece is, yeah, it's
Austria.
amazing. Yeah. I don't think we'd ever see you back. We took you to
No.
Greece
Do it.
or Italy. So we would have to make those the last 2 places, because usually what happens when people vacation in Greece or Italy is they go to Italy, they burn through all them, they stay as absolutely long as their money will let them, and then then when they're broke, they come home, and when they come home, all they do is work to build up their vacation reserves to go back to Italy.
Right.
It is apparently that wonderful to live there. That's apparently the place.
I believe it. I totally believe it.
And so
But yeah.
I had a good friend of mine is a painter, and a painter with the Italian style, a realism school style.
Did you go to school with him?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But he went and learned painting from the Italian masters, and he got hooked on it, and now that's what he's done for like the last 15 or 20 years. Is he works in the U.S. and lives in the U.S. and he saves all his money, and then he goes for 6 months or 8 months or so, however long his money will hold him out, to Italy when he can't take it anymore, and then when he's broke, he comes back to the U.S. for another 2 or 3 years. So I think it's a combination.
Cool.
I think the food is really exceptional over there. The wine is apparently amazing.
I believe it.
And let's see what else. And the people are apparently pretty amazing. You know, you can just set up your art easel and paint all day and make a life out of it. So those are my
Sounds
three.
like it. That's a good 3.